perhaps this has been, we see this as a positive because it is a kind of a call to action, and this is a good a good excuse or a good time to bring attention to wake up a lot of the small businesses who suddenly have kind of an alarm clock saying, oh, here's some funding available. What do we need to do? But of course, once we have them there and we have their attention, the training that we can give them through our local Hispanic chambers of commerce is intended for the long term and is intended to to help them realize how to deal with government agencies, how to become self-sufficient in obtaining procurement contracts with the federal government and with the private sector, and those skills we hope obviously stay with them, and that knowledge stays with them, whether it's this particular stimulus package or going forward, kind of in general. So of all the things, that is the key issue to us. Is this is rather than treating it as a one-time, how are these particular funds distributed or not, preparing our small businesses to be open to opportunities in the long term.
Questions for each of our panelists?
I have a question for, what's your name, sir?
Devere.
Question for you. With regards to the stimulus, but just some other stuff too, you mentioned things kind of interesting to me, is that, let's say these goals and whatnot that Mr. Robinson talked about, let's say 10%, 20%, but then you're talking about a growing population of minorities who in terms of demographic studies will be the new majority. Should those numbers be adjusted to reflect that? And how are organizations like yours working with other chambers of commerce of other groups and whatnot to kind of present maybe a unified front to talk about addressing the issues and make those numbers as far as goals, timetables, quotas, whatever the case may be, bigger? Because you're talking about a larger subset of people versus previously when you might have been talking about just African Americans.
Actually, that's one of the things that we are working on, is trying to cooperate with some of the other chambers of commerce. And it's interesting because one of the things that we face is a lot of times we get confused with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is in many cases on the other side of the issue than we are. So to us, half the battle is just differentiating ourselves on that front. But as far as can we band together and create an even larger interest block just by banding together with the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, I would say yes. Has that happened so far? Not to the extent that we would like, but that's one of the things that going forward, we actually just have a new president that was appointed at the beginning of last month. That's one of the top agenda items for him. So we would like to do that a lot more than we have going in the past.
One cautionary note. The courts have said emphatically that the process of goal setting cannot, shall not be a function of demographics. So you can't tie the goal to the demographics of the population. It has to be around the availability of businesses, ready, willing, and able businesses.
Right. Oh,
So that's the benchmark instead of demographics. I just wanted to make that clarifying point.
well, I understand that. And I'll say this, that also, I think that beyond just looking at just government alone, because government is not a panacea. I guess our Katrina experience kind of proved that. But the thing is that how do these organizations just work together just in just the regular marketplace, not necessarily just government alone, but just to come together as a unified front to just look at these issues beyond government contracts? That kind of stuff, just skill sets, is giving people the skill sets and whatnot, and just trading intellectual information and just different things that could help all these businesses benefit and grow. That kind of stuff, not just necessarily government.
Yeah, and your point is well taken, because government only represents, depending on the industry, you take transportation, government spending is only about 1/5 of the industry. Let me government growing a little bit more, to say, even if you look at construction, government is only about a fifth of the industry. And so the bigger industry always is outside of government. Now, what's good about that is that the court has said that government has a right not to be a passive participant of discrimination in the private sector. So the government can act to eliminate discrimination in the private sector if it so chooses. And often what we have found is that we can many times get local governments to act as it relates to private sector discrimination, where it may be hesitant or refuses to act when it comes to public sector discrimination. That's a political issue. It's a political will issue.